Welcome everybody to our Lizzie D Live series, The Business of Writing a Book, Lighting the Way and Leaving Your Mark, which is a LinkedIn live series where I sit down with creatives, experts and entrepreneurs alike to discover not only the inspiration behind their decision to write a book, but how doing so helped them to leave their mark in their respective fields and lead the way for others from a business and industry perspective. I'm delighted today to welcome Lucy McCarraher, author, speaker, book mentor and publisher, founder of Rethink Press and Business Book Awards. She's the host of Abu, A Book of One's Own. Lucy works with entrepreneurs to write and publish books that build their authority in business. She's written no less than 13 books, 3 fiction and 10 non-fiction, and loves to inspire people to turn their valuable experience and expertise into their most magical and influential asset, their book. She designed and runs a Rethink Press book builder, where it's all about writing your own book in 90 days, a program which is where we met and where I participated to write my own book, Destination Animation, How Smart Marketeers Convey Complex Messages Memorably. And her system made it all the more achievable. And I'm most grateful because after having tried on my own unsuccessfully, her book builder program made my book a reality. And today, Lucy is going to talk to us about her newest book, A Book of One's Own, a manifesto for women to share their experience and make a difference. So welcome, Lucy.
Thank you, Christine. It's lovely to be here. Very kind of you to have invited me.
No, it's very exciting to have you here. And I must ask you, is the title of your book a nod to the famous Room of One's Own by Virginia Woolf, who's that stalwart of the female space and society and literature?
It is absolutely. That? I mean, I don't seem grandiose in comparing myself to Virginia Woolf in any way, but that title literally just popped into my head one morning. The whole concept of the book was there, but I didn't have a title for it, and it just kind of popped into my head, and it just felt really right. So, in a much, Virginia Woolf's book, A Room of One's Own, was all about women in fiction not being represented, not writing, not being published enough, and not their subject matter not being valued. Their lives not being valued as the content of books, and how they needed their own space. And it just felt like, in a much smaller niche, I had discovered that women were having a much harder time to get their business books actually written and then published than male authors were. So it just felt like it was actually almost exactly 90 years after Virginia Woolf's book came out.
Amazing.
So I thought, well, it's, there's still a case to be made for women being more visible in book form.
I totally agree. And I love the comparison. I remember when I read that book, it was quite cathartic for me because it talked about something I'd never thought of, for example, how men have always been allowed to describe how a woman thinks, but how dare a woman describe how a man thinks? And I'd never thought of that. And I thought, my gosh, that's amazing. And I love how, having a room of one's own would provide a woman with the time and the space to engage in uninterrupted writing time, which is literally kind of what you're saying as well, with this modern approach and that sort of the bias and unconscious bias that goes on so many levels. So where did the idea of the book come from? What inspired you? I mean, you're in touch with so many elements of writing and a business, but what was the thing that really sparked this particular book?
The thing that sparked it off was that I founded the Business Book Awards in 2017, and we had 150 entries, which was great. And we went through, I had a judging panel of 10 women and 10 men at that point. And we went through a process. We had categories that I thought were, very fair and egalitarian. And we had a judging process that I thought was absolutely, rigorous. And again, kind of completely bias-free. However, when we got to the point of, the category judges, each having chosen their winner, we had 11 brilliant winners, absolutely fantastic books. Every single one was a white man. So
wow.
And then I went back and looked at the entries, and I realized that we'd only had half as many entries, 50 entries from women authors as men. And then fewer than that sort of 50, that 1/3 had got through to the shortlisting, and no women winners. So I thought, well, I can't kind of ignore this. I don't want to kind of undermine the winners, but that was what made me go on a mission to find out what was happening to women authors, whether people were being challenged about actually writing their book, whether publishing was an issue, and what was worrying women about getting their books out there.
Amazing. And what sort of insights can you share from the book, from those the discoveries that you made along the way?
Yeah, no, I interviewed, I did a survey, and I did some in-depth interviews with 50 women authors who obviously had got their books out and got them published. But what they said really, some of it really fascinated me. And I kind of distilled it down to 6 C's that I thought that women were particularly up against. One was confidence. That was the big one, that they just didn't feel confident putting themselves out there because, and the second one is criticism. Women are much more fearful of criticism than men, it seems. So, and with good reason, we are criticized and trolled and put down in some areas. And so they really felt that if they said what they thought and put it out there as a book, it would feel like they were putting a target on themselves. Then there was credibility. Some of them had difficulty getting published because they didn't seem to be credible, and they didn't always feel credible. And then there were 2 kind of linked ones. One was caring, which have I got time to do this? I've got so many other things in my life.
Right.
Is it fair? This was so interesting. Several people said it just feels selfish to take the time to write a book for me when I'm supposed to be looking after loads of other people. And that didn't just mean their family and children and things. It was also like, if you employed people, your clients, your friendship groups, you kind of, women are much more sort of feeling that they need to take care of everybody else before they're allowed to care for themselves. And writing a book seemed to fall into the selfish category for so many, which was, I thought, really, that's
amazing,
fascinating.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And then there's the cash, which is kind of linked to the caring. Women tend to run smaller businesses because they often run them around their domestic lives. And then the final one was the club, C for club. And men seem to naturally have support groups, mentoring, networking places where people will say, yeah, write a book. Here's how I can help you. Yes, you're absolutely. And women just kind of feel excluded and don't feel they have always a place where they can get that kind of support. And that's why I started the ABU, which is the acronym for a book of one's own, if that seems like an odd name, the ABU Facebook group, which is just for women authors and aspiring authors to be a place where they can get support and share their ups and downs and all that. So
is that for primarily business books, Lucy?
It is primarily. Right. I mean, we do have some novelists in there. We also have a book club, and we kind of read all sorts of books there, and talk to novelists and other authors as well. But yes, I mean, my focus is very much on women writing a book that will build their business, because I think it actually turns all those 6 C's on their head when you do that. It gives you confidence, it deflects criticism, it gives you incredible, gender neutral credibility, and it actually brings cash. I mean, I'm sure you resonate with all these things that, having written your book, it does build your business, it does give you credibility, and it also brings you into a club of authors. So it does all the opposite things to those worries that women have with the 6 C's. So that's why I'm so passionate about wanting more women to do this, because I also think, and this is my kind of big picture thing, that it does that for every woman who publishes her book, writes and publishes her books, brings credibility, but it also adds to the universal pool of female credibility. Every woman who gets a book out there is adding to all of our credibility.
I couldn't agree with you more. And speaking personally, writing a book it still feels a little surreal, to be fair, but it is amazing. And when I give the book or I talk about the book, people are always quite surprised. And for me, in my perspective, is really to help people understand all about animation, how it works, and all that kind of stuff. But it does give you that sort of thought leadership feel. And I remember giving a book to a client, and they go, "Oh, what's a book in animation? Oh, you wrote it." It's like that reaction, isn't it? It's like, "Oh, wow. Oh, and you signed it." And then it becomes something that nobody ever throws a book away. They might throw your business card away, but they won't throw a book away. So I totally agree with you. And what a wonderful way to convert all those C's into a positive outcome, instead of, as you say, that the sort of the doubt in minds beforehand. It's amazing. And I love the fact that it covers the conscious and unconscious bias against women, and how to overcome that, which is something, as we talked about earlier, actually, that is very close to our hearts, because in animation it is a fantastic way to overcome bias of all sorts, gender or culture or religion. Absolutely. Or anything like that, because it can be quite sort of culturalist and genderless. So it's something very close to my heart as well. But I love what you're doing, and I think this book sounds absolutely amazing. Has this book sort of helped you with your overall business message, or overall sort of business goals, because you do so many things, from the awards to the book builder and all those kind of things? Has that helped to your armory, if you like, towards your overall message?
Yes, I think it has. It's certainly positioned me as someone who supports women in business, and particularly women in the area of business books. So I think that has that certainly helped us at Rethink Press get more women into publishing, and getting more women onto the book builder program, and working with me in the ABU group. So yes, it definitely has. It definitely has helped in many ways. So yeah, I mean, I hope that I kind of practice what I preach, in that you write a book that gives people your valuable knowledge and experience and content, and you tell them everything you can in a book, but it also engages with your ideal clients, whoever and whatever they are, and because you speak to them directly through your book. I mean, a book is like having a one-to-one conversation every time somebody reads it. So you hope that those people who read your book and it really applies to them will come back to you and say, yes, I actually want to work with you for the implementation after your book's giving me the information. And then your job then is to do the transformation bit for those ideal clients. So yes, it definitely has worked for me as well.
Brilliant. And also, when I was on your program, I always found you incredibly, how should I say, calm, supportive. It's when you're sort of tearing your hair out, don't know what you're doing next, and you have your presence, and Joe helping everybody along the way in the group to get the book out in the 90 days. I mean, you're a writer of many books, but what was the journey like to put it down on paper for this particular book?
For this particular book, I did sort of the research first. I mean, not just my primary research with my 50 women, but also into the statistics, the horrible, shocking statistics of how women are unconscious or consciously biased against in business and in publishing. And then I took the reader through the process of how to get your book written and why you should get your book written and all the benefits of doing it. But then, the how-to stuff, showing them that it is a step-by-step process, as you've said. And that's what we've done in Book Builder, is to turn that process, which, we've been mentoring people through writing their business book for nearly 10 years now. And, literally thousands of authors have come on that, entrepreneurs have come on that journey with us. And it's just, I think, as it's about creating a process and a model and showing that it's not just some big amorphous task that you kind of dive into. And a lot of people are literally put off writing a book, and probably a very good book, because they literally don't know where to start. And other people are put off it by kind of jumping in too soon without having done a rigorous planning process first, which is really important, and then just started writing and thinking, oh well, I know all my stuff, it'll all fall into place. But usually it doesn't. If you haven't done the planning, the writing will probably be less easy than you thought it would be. And so people get stuck halfway through. And I think you've had a bit of that experience.
Absolutely. Without your system, it wouldn't have worked. As I said, I tried for 6 months beforehand. It kind of went nowhere. But your system just makes it all so much more. I won't say it is easier.
It's never
clearer.
easy.
It's
but
clearer.
Yes.
It's and you're directed. You kind of know what you need to do. And then once you've got that in your head, things just come out. It is a wonderful system. I can't shout about it enough. I think without it, definitely wouldn't have written my book.
Well, I think having done it for so long, that's what we are now absolutely clear that that is, you need to start with the positioning, and there's a little method for doing that, the 3 P's of position we take authors through, and then there's the planning process using our software and our coloured card system, and that's all really clear and manageable. And then the writer process, which is that's obviously the biggest bit, the actual writing. But again, it's breaking things down into manageable chunks and knowing that there is a process, that it's not just, sort of do a lot of writing, then maybe edit some of it or edit as you go. And, it's not like that. Do it in this order and it will be much, much easier, and it will fall into place and you'll get it right. So a lot of the time, as you know, I spend saying to people, don't worry about what's coming next. Just follow the system, do what I'm telling you now, and then it will, I promise you, it will work. And I think generally it does.
I think your comparison to it being amorphous is so true, because the idea of writing books, oh my god, it's just too big for me. But as you say, it's kind of breaking it down, then having a system and doing one thing before the other, I think, is what helps to put things in place. And I won't give away too many, because there's some wonderful things that you suggest on the course which really, really help. And I would never have thought of doing it myself. So then that really kind of helped the whole process going forward, which is amazing. I mean, obviously, there are lots of reasons to write a business book. I mean, what are the sort of the main ones that you would, why you'd encourage someone to write a book? Because whether male or female, or any gender,
absolutely,
I think it's fabulous to be able to put your thoughts to paper, isn't it?
I know, completely. And, essentially, there are 4, solid things that will happen to you when you write the right kind of book. And the first thing is clarity and confidence. And that's just in the writing process, even if you never showed it to anyone else, which, of course, is not what I'm suggesting. When you, as you know, when you plan in detail your content, your model, the journey you're going to take your reader through, it's the same as getting clarity on the process that you take your clients through. And then you write 30 to 40,000 words, and you have to have it in the right order. You have to have it expressed well. You have to have the stories that back up your knowledge in place, and all those sorts of things. So in the writing process, you just get amazing clarity. And lots of people just feel that they are able to sell their business in, whether that's just sort of in speaking, in pitching, whatever it is, because they've written their book. And it gives you that confidence. When you've written something down, it kind of goes into the archive in your mind. So when you're asked questions or you're put on the spot, you're never at a loss, because all that stuff is just there, kind of, stored in your mind. So clarity and confidence just in the writing of your book. But also, when your book goes out there, your authority and influence is just magnified so many times. I mean, that you just said that when people know you are the author of a book, they immediately assume that you are the expert, the authority. So that is just, a huge benefit to having that book written and, out there with your name on the front. But also the way a book is distributed, it goes around the world, it goes, it goes in print form, it goes in ebook form, it goes, for most people, I would advise, in audio form. And, it just talks to people you would never have met, never come across. And people, as you say, they talk about your book, they refer your book, they review your book, they pass on your book, they leave your book on their desk or on their table. And it just, magnifies your influence. And then the big one, number 3, is prospects and clients. You know, your book is the best. We say at Rethink Press, nothing sells you like a book, but precisely because it is not a sales tool. As you said, it's not a business card. It's not a pitch. It's not a marketing brochure. It is pure value. In fact, with a price tag that many people will pay, but we suggest that you always give away as many copies of your book as possible. Because when you put your book into the hands of a prospect or a client who you want to come and work with you, it will just be that thing that says to them, yeah, this person knows what I need. They have the process to create it, to bring me what I need. And it's incredible how people just gain so many more clients, put their prices up. It's just, you know, the kind of, we call it your undercover sales agent.
I love that. But it's so true. Sorry.
No, I mean, the other thing is, if you want to become more visible yourself, like if you want to be on speaking platforms, if you want to, you know, be a podcast guest, all of those things, then writing a book is just a great way to be that expert. And, you know, the media go looking for their experts and pundits on Amazon because it's such a good search engine for experts, but only if you've written your book and you're on there. So you should definitely, you know, consider that one. And then, you know, finally, there is something that we call book magic, which, you know, I can't tell you what it'll be for you or for any author, but with all our authors, they come back to us after, might be 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, and say, oh, you'll never guess what's happened. Something incredible's happened. And whatever it is, you know, whether it's getting in touch with somebody they really kind of hero worship, or being invited onto a prestigious committee, or getting an incredible client or a speaking gig, you know, they'll come back and say, I never expected that. But that's what we call book magic. Something will happen, at least one thing that you won't be able to predict, but it will happen.
That's amazing. What you're talking about, sort of the spread of the book and people who read it that you don't expect. It's happened to me already a couple of times where I've been networking and somebody says, oh, Salamandra, I'm reading your book. And I'm going, what?
Oh,
and then
fantastic.
An old friend from university said, oh, I bought your book, and you know, gave me some feedback on it. I hadn't spoken to for, you know, decades. It's kind of, it is quite strange how it sort of filters out. But the other thing which I think is wonderful about book is how you can use it in marketing as well. So you can take chapters, or you can take, you know, elements out of that and use it in your marketing, and to support, I suppose, your thought leadership and your expertise and your know-how. So that, I think, is fantastic as well for businesses, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, everything in your book is repurposable, content-wise, you know, whether it's for blog posts or articles, or, you know, whenever anybody asks me to write an article for something or contribute, you know, I just, you know, go to my book, cut and paste a bit, fiddle about a bit, and it's there. So it's, brilliant.
And what would you say? I mean, obviously you've written a number of books, but what would you say that you've learned from other people and yourself about what they've learned about themselves about through the writing process? So, you know, from the research you've done for this book, for example, with some of the authors, some of the feedback you might have got from them about what they learned about themselves, and then yourself, from your first book to your last book, what are some of the things that you've learned about yourself by you know, creating something like the content of a book?
I think you learn something about yourself with every book you write. I mean, one of the things that's people often go through a stage of kind of imposter syndrome when they're writing a book, and they think, oh gosh, what I'm writing is so boring. Everybody knows this. There's nothing new here. Why am I writing a book? Nobody will read it. And then gradually they go through the process. And I'm often saying, look, this is what everybody feels when they're writing a book. It's not true. It's just your mind trying to kind of protect you in a way from making a fool of yourself, but it's not necessary. And I think what you learn is that, and people have just been saying this to me on another book builder call I had the other day, I didn't realize I knew so much. I'm really pleased. I've now got through my first draft, and I can see that I have this whole body of knowledge, and that's, you know, incredibly confidence building, I think. So there's that. I mean, I think also sometimes people discover that they have a special niche, and they may have been writing on a comparatively broad subject, and they suddenly think that when we ask them to decide who their ideal client is, who they are, the one person they're writing the book to, they think, I just need to talk to that. This is my niche. These are the people who are, my tribe, my clients. And sometimes they pivot their books or niche their books, and their business becomes not smaller because they're niching, but actually bigger because they're talking to the right people. So I think there's that. But also, if you're writing a book and you are including case studies or research with other people, you just learn so much from that as well. So it's just, I just think writing a book is an incredible piece of self-development that everybody should do. But, if you do more than one, you go on with that self-development, and you just, you get insights about what you're good at, what you know, what you need to learn, all of that.
It's so true. Self-development. I love that. That's a cool way to describe it. But yeah, absolutely. I think you do realize all the knowledge that the company has, or that through your systems and experience and case studies. I mean, in business, who doesn't love a case study? Because it obviously helps you benchmark, doesn't it, yourself against what that case study sort of showed.
Absolutely. And I like to say to people when they're writing their book, put in as many varied case studies, just little short stories, because we remember stories. We don't always remember facts and figures, but our brains are wired to remember stories. So if you tell a little story, lots of little stories about the people you've worked with and been able to help, every ideal client of yours, no matter how different they might all be, should 2 or 3 times in the book be able to go, that's me. That's what I need. This person has done what I need doing for me now. And that's how you get your clients coming back to you and saying, yeah, I want to work with you.
Definitely. It humanizes it, doesn't it? It's back to that old thing of less B2B and H2H. So business to business rather to human.
Yeah.
I definitely think that that those case studies help to, I don't know, bring it all to life, as you say, in a story format. That's great. So I don't know if you've got any questions from on the LinkedIn. I'm just having a quick look here. If anybody's got any questions, please put them on the LinkedIn Live, and we'll answer them as much as well as we can. But is there anything else that you'd like to leave with our sort of viewers, listeners, with regards to if you haven't written a book and you're dying to do it, what motivation do you need? What sort of, I suppose, what can you do to get them to actually start on your journey?
One of the things that holds people back from writing their book is thinking that it's a risk. It's a risk to spend all that time. It's a risk to spend money, say, having mentoring or coaching for writing. It's a risk to invest in publishing your book. But actually, I would say that's the wrong way to look at it. And in fact, the risk is not to get that book out there, because if you don't do it, who is going to write the book in your market and, claim your place? If how disappointed would you be if your nearest rival put their book out there, said all the things or many of the things that you were going to say, and suddenly became the perceived expert in your industry? I mean, that would be just devastating. And I also think, we have clients who start off sort of with the feeling that, I could never write a book. I'm not, for various reasons. For example, one of our authors, Mark Escott, is incredibly dyslexic. And he thought, that's not for me. He also had a very poor education because he had a very difficult start in life. And he actually runs a business that is called Life Chance, that helps young people who are in a position he used to be in. And he really thought that writing a book was never something he'd be able to do. And he actually came on a workshop that I was giving and suddenly stood up and said, yes, I think I could do this, actually, the way you're describing it. And he did. And, he used our Booksmith service, which is actually a kind of ghostwriting. And I would never, that's totally confidential normally, but Mark has given me permission. And it's part of his story that this is because he was dyslexic. This is how he did it. And his book has gone out there and really grown his business. And in fact, And while this is a piece of book magic I love, he was sitting on a train on the way back from a training day, and a woman started chatting to him, and he gave her a copy of his book, because when you've written a book, of course, your book is, you keep your copies of your book in your bag and you give them out to all and sundry. It turned out later, he didn't know this at the time, she was his MP. And she has been amazingly impressed by his book.
Oh my God,
and
that's
given
amazing.
him so much help for the business, because obviously it's great for their area. So, it's that sort of thing that you need to realize can happen, and that it's not risky to write a book. The risk is not writing your book. And, if Mark had stuck with his belief that he couldn't write a book, then, that would never have happened. So,
gosh, I think all that you're saying absolutely resonates with me, particularly as well, because the book that I wrote was, I believe, the first book ever written on B2B animation.
yes.
So how amazing is that to be able to do that?
Exactly. I mean, your book is fantastic, and it's so, I mean, it makes you think when you read it, oh, actually we could use animation for our business. I mean, we've been talking to you about that because it just was something that I didn't consider, or Joe and I thought would be either out of our price range or just too difficult. But actually, reading your book tells us exactly how it can work, and how Salamandra makes that happen for businesses. So yeah, the book is just really good at putting it out there.
Well, thanks, Lucy. We've got a question here from Sue Elson. She's saying, what tips do you recommend for people who want to move from writing one or more books to becoming a book writer of many books in one or more genres, and not doing the consulting as well to the same level?
Okay, so that's that's a complicated question, but yes, I mean, I think depending on what genre you are talking about, I mean, I think if you're, for example, a fiction writer, then your best bet is probably to go for self-publishing and turn yourself into a micro business, get your own books out there. It's the cheapest and most effective way of doing it if you're not, sort of being contracted by a big traditional publisher. With business books, I really would say, and I know I would say this, wouldn't I, because Rethink Press is a hybrid publisher, but I would say with business books, take it a step at a time. Have a plan, a strategic plan for writing, a series of books, perhaps aimed at maybe different areas of your market, or, slightly different niches, however that works. But do it in a very studied way. I mean, when you write a business book for different parts of your market, you can often repurpose a lot of the central content of your book, and then kind of add the bits that work for different areas or different specific kind of prospects, clients. But I would say make sure that you get published with a reputable publisher, and obviously I'd say Rethink Press is by far the most reputable publisher anywhere. But if you want to come and chat to us about that, drop us a line at info@rethinkpress.com, and we'll talk you through that. But I think it's a strategic thing. You can certainly cut back on the consulting, because you can up your fees when you've got books out there, and you can specialize, and you can use your book to create online programs, so you can give your content one to many, and the book is a great basis for doing that. So I think there's all sorts of ways you can do it, but feel free to excuse me, come and have a chat with us at Rethink Press, because we can tell you how that can work.
Fantastic. Jack Watson is asking whether he can find the 6 C's written down. Anyway, do you have any marketing around the book that we've got?
Yes,
6 C's,
we do.
Of course, and the answer is buy the book, Jack. But
no, actually, we do have a nice PDF of about the 6 C's. And again, if you can I give you the link to that, because I don't actually have it with me at the moment, Christine? Maybe we could put it in the comments or somewhere.
We can put it in the comments. We're recording this, so we'll edit it up, and once it goes live, then Jack will hopefully have that so that you can find the PDF. No problem at all. And then I guess my last question is, seeing as you've written so many books, the first book is hard enough. How hard is the second book? Because, it's a bit like, you've done this first thing and it's kind of a big achievement, but your second book must have a lot of doubts, as in, gosh, I did one, can I really do another? I mean, I know you've done 13, but any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think the second book is often harder on the author than than the reader. I mean, the reader's kind of like dying for your next book, so that's absolutely fine. I think it is hard to write a second book and feel that you're giving lots of fresh new material, but actually you have to remember, as a business book author, that people love reading. They love reinforcement. So it doesn't matter if you repeat some things, if you're talking to a slightly different area of your market, or you're updating your book, or you're saying, slightly different things. It's fine to say some of the same things again. That is not a kind of bad thing to do. And, you've done it once, you can keep doing it. Some people will read one book and not the other. Some people will read your second book, but it is good to keep a flow of books coming. I mean, it's fine to write your absolute signature book and nothing else, and one book is it for you. That's great, but I do think that it needs updating probably every couple of years, so you do a new edition and get new interest and keep it fresh. But also, if you have got more to say, one book every 2 or 3 years, just keep putting yourself out there is absolutely great for your readers and for your business.
Fantastic. And lastly, where can people get hold of you? Can you share your, whether it's the URL or an email? I mean, you mentioned info at Rethink Press, was it?
Yes, absolutely. So info at rethinkpress.com. Rethinkpress.com is our website, and you can also come through that way. If you're a woman author or aspiring author, it's the ABU, a book of one's own Facebook group. Yes, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm all on, Facebook, on social media. So absolutely feel free to connect with me there.
Yes, and you do a lot of speaking events as well, which is good to know. So we'll have to keep an eye on your next one. But and obviously the book awards, which are coming up as well, which is very exciting.
Indeed. If anybody wants to come to the Business Book Awards event, that's a fabulous thing to do on May the 16th in London, and see, there you actually see the results of people who have written their book and really kind of, got an award for, or been shortlisted or whatever. It's a great evening.
And such a variety of topics as well. It's amazing. Really, really amazing topics.
Yes, we have 12 categories now. So yes, all sorts.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lucy. It's been really, really interesting. And I've learned a lot. I'm sure our viewers have as well. It's all about writing a book, really. But you've shown us how to do that time and time again. And then not only that, but how to help others on that journey. So thank you so much. Thank you for helping me. Wouldn't have happened without you and Joe. So thanks again. And thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. Thank
you.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.